First off, I'd like to say that it's a genuine honor to be presenting at this first Data-Driven Design Day in Helsinki. I want to say thanks to SC5 for the invitation to be here. I really appreciate it. You know, I've been talking about big data for a long time. And it's nice to be referenced about my presentation before I even give it. So thanks to Lassie for that. But I've been talking about it since before it was called big data. You know, since before it became this kind of slightly dangerous buzzword that it is right now. And in those early years, I was always presenting to very technical audiences. So I was presenting to DBAs and scientists and engineers, and that was fine, okay? Because, you know, we were talking about what it is that we do, right? But then, as my career developed and as I matured slightly, I started to talk to a more business-oriented audience. And I was talking about the same kind of thing. And I really quickly learned that these kind of talks have the effect of putting people to sleep really quickly, okay? Now, in order to prevent that from happening, I was forced to learn the why we do this, okay? So what are the reasons why we actually collect data? What are the reasons why we combine data? And then what are the reasons why we produce insight? And then how do we act on that insight? And these reasons all come down to business benefits. So when I was talking about the real reasons behind these exercises, then the conversations became more interesting for a broader audience. And what I noticed is that this definitely made me a better analyst, but it also made me a better leader of analysts because I was able to communicate the requirements from business into the team. So my name is Cormac Walsh, and I'm the head of analytics in Fonecta. A little bit of background, I'm Irish, okay? I've lived here for over 10 years, so the Finnish people are going to say, do you speak Finnish? Well, I'm good at decryption, but you know, when it comes to the Finnish language, it's a little bit hard. So I actually understand Finnish pretty well, but speaking it is considerably more difficult. Today, in this data-driven design, I'm going to talk about, let's say, Fonecta's view about data-driven design, what it means, what it is today, and a little bit about what we see for the future. Okay? And I sincerely hope that I do not put you to sleep. If you feel yourself nodding off, just, interrupt me. So one of the things about giving a presentation like this, when there's a theme and a title, even if it's a buzzword or something which is seemingly well understood, I find this is a good opportunity to have an attempt at defining what the statement actually means. So data-driven design. I see it as design based on measurement. Okay? So design is pretty straightforward to understand what that means. But based on measurement, that's where the data comes into the picture. Now, the advantage that this obviously gives you is that it's going to be designed based on fact. Okay? So the idea of design based on opinion, and then, let's say, investment in production, investment in distribution and marketing, and then pushing it out into the real live world, and then seeing if it works, it's the opportunity to shorten that cycle. So to get a little bit of pre-validation based on other measurements. And that's the value that data can give. But, why do this? Okay? Well, ultimately, we have the opportunity to give a better user experience to people. Now, I want to open up the idea of user experience slightly. I think that user experience is much more than a pure digital concept. So I see, if you buy cheese in a grocery store, you're a user of the cheese, and you should have a pleasurable experience using that cheese. Okay? You see everything. If you use an elevator, a toaster, whatever it is. Okay? So data has the opportunity to obviously benefit digital services, but importantly to benefit almost anything which users will interact with. Because this is going to give better business results. Okay? Because remember, this is the reason why we do these things. Now, if you can give people a good experience using your service or your product, you have the opportunity to not only turn them into repeat users or repeat customers, but you have the opportunity to turn them into advocates for your product and service. So to turn them into your marketing force, into your sales force. Yeah? Now, of course, this cuts both ways. Do it wrong and they won't promote you. But if you have the possibility to measure the right data and apply it in the right way in terms of your service or product design, then at least you're taking steps in the right direction. So I've said the word data quite a few times already, and I've said big data once or twice, but what is it? Okay? So this is the Cormac's Guide to Big Data. Okay? So let's pretend you're a company and you have information in the company. An easy example would be, let's say you're a telecommunications company. You're collecting a waterfall, a lake, an ocean of data on a daily basis about people's behavior and about people's service usage. Think about the information that you can collect. You're collecting, where people are when they use services, how much they're willing to spend for services, what combination of services they're using, what other people they're communicating with, and then how those composite views of services overlay on top of each other. You're collecting a massive quantity of information. Truly staggering, okay? But it's not big data, it's lots of data. Tons and tons, more than you'll ever carry, right? So things get interesting, really, from a business perspective when you start to combine that data that you have with other forms of information. So take, for example, open data. So that could be weather, stock market data. It could be some population information, which is freely available, location information, mapping systems, okay? So you can start to connect this to the data that you already have about the customers that you know intimately. Now things are getting interesting, okay? Then you can go to a provider of data enrichment. So companies who have lots of data themselves and then can take your company data and can apply additional insight and knowledge about your business and about your customers on top of that, okay? So Fonecta, we're a provider of these data enrichment services, okay? So at this point, you have big data. This is when it starts, yeah? So, for all the men in the audience, big data is not about size, it's about quality, okay? That was your cue to laugh, okay? That was a joke, yeah? Okay. Yes, Cormac, yeah? No audience participation today, okay. Okay, so when you have this in place, yeah, you have the opportunity to do a few interesting things. So let's think about that if you have contentions and concepts and theories about your business, you have the opportunity, using the data, to prove whether or not you're right, okay? Think about weather and ice cream sales, okay? You might think that weather has a direct impact on ice cream sales, but it happens that it does, okay? Is it a 2 degree? 2 degrees is 2% or something?
It is straight, I
yeah.
don't remember, but
yeah.
it has a...
So there is a measurable correlation between temperature and ice cream sales, right? So in a sense, the weather acts as a leading indicator, and then the ice cream sales track closely behind it, okay? So you can prove a theory or a contention that you have. But proving it doesn't necessarily help your business, okay? But big data, if you apply it to the design of your business processes, gives you the opportunity to improve your business process. So for example, if you start to measure weather in real time, you could decide where are the best places to distribute different ice cream products based on geography, based on an understanding of how the sales have performed in the past, okay? So you can use it to improve a process. And then the holy grail of big data analytics is to discover things that you could not imagine, or discover things that you just did not notice, which were there already. Okay? It could be the case that there are other, let's say, non-obvious correlations or connections between the sales of particular products and other environmental factors. I mean purely environmental factors, not just social media mentions or things. But you have the opportunity at least to start to notice these things. Right? So this is where the power of the data can start to feed in to the design process. And actually at this point I have to really stress that I'm not a designer at all, and I never pretend to be a designer. But I do really strongly appreciate the importance of design. Okay? So, why do it? Well, and let's say in terms of the focus of today's entire event, okay, and the most obvious candidate for the application of data-driven design is the digital world, okay? This is an absolute no-brainer. This is obvious. One of the reasons here is that it's an extraordinarily high-velocity world, so you can test ideas really, really quickly. The sample measurements that you can get can include tens of thousands, even millions of users, okay? So this is highly attractive. But then another very important world where it can be used is the industrial world, okay? Thanks, PowerPoint. Love you too. So the industrial world, yeah? This is a world where a lot of people are not aware how pervasive the use of measured information is to affect user experience, yeah? So you see, we have these two domains. We have the digital world, let's say the online world, and then the industrial world, let's say the offline world. But I think that this is a false dichotomy. I think the separation between these universes doesn't exist, okay? I think it's really just the business world is the thing that exists, okay? Now, I want to give a few examples about why I believe this. So, take for example, the fast-moving consumer goods world, okay? Just about everybody is involved in this world, okay? You're a consumer, right? Now, this industry has been excellent in terms of using data to assign product sortment inside stores based on location, sortment based on stores, inside stores based on time and season, product placement inside stores, product sequencing inside stores, okay? Pricing, okay, so functional pricing, and then collecting data to give people personalized offers, okay? I don't see these kind of offers as being advertisements at all. I see it as being demand fulfillment, This is something which effectively makes your life easier. You spend less time in the store. So this industry has been really strong in terms of collecting information to fundamentally redesign how they do business. Another industry which has to be paid attention to is this. Does anybody know what that is? It's an elevator, yeah, but it's not. It's a people flow device. Yeah, right? So the Finnish company Kone is kind of pioneering the world here in terms of, developing and delivering people flow solutions. Viewing a building almost like a living and breathing thing, where people are coming in at different rates, at different velocities and moving in different patterns throughout a building or a space, depending on factors just like the retail industry enjoys. So they can be weather-based, season-based, time of day, whatever, even influenced by social factors. And the systems that are controlling these people flow devices are tuning the availability and the actual, let's say, throughput of these devices in the buildings. So not viewing an individual element and then an individual element and then an individual element, but looking at an entire service chain. Yeah? So this is where they're using data. So if you think about this concept of an entire service chain, then you have to think about the telco industry. Okay? Data has been used in the telco industry, so behavioral data inside the network to provide predictive maintenance. And another Finnish company, Nokia, is another pioneer in this field. Okay? Disclaimer, hands up, I used to work for Nokia. Yay! Okay, yeah. So what happens here is that, let's say, based on past behavioral data, not just looking at individual components, but looking at usage and an entire service chain. So from your device to the Facebook servers. There's a lot of components and elements involved in that, okay? And predicting when a device is going to fail, okay? Having a spare geographically close to the point of failure, so the downtime is going to be negligible, or preemptively swapping out a device before a failure, right? Think about it from a user experience perspective. So data-driven design is about user experience. All of these things give an enhanced user experience with let's say, what appears to be magic in the background. Yeah? It's invisible how it happens to the users. But people end up, getting better offers in the grocery store and spending a little bit less time. They end up, getting less sweaty walking through an airport after a 10-hour flight to, Beijing. Or they end up having 0 or less downtime on their mobile communications devices. It's all outstanding user experience. So, from a business perspective, when you're consuming data, design is also a really, really, really important part. And in Fonecta, we take the construction of dashboards and the availability of business data very seriously. So it should be easy to access, easy to consume. So our dashboards, let's say, let people play with the data that they have in ways that aid the proving, the improving, and the discovery of things that they would not have noticed. So I've spoken about the kind of good things, but let me give a really quick example about what happens when you don't accept an opportunity to change inside your ecosystem. These are 3 examples of companies that basically had their entire businesses stolen from them by non-linear competition that they could have never predicted was going to come in, okay? Simply because they didn't pay attention to changes that were happening in their industry. Now, the point I'm making here is that if a firm doesn't start to recognize the information that they have and use that to make the services and products they offer more relevant, then they run the risk of being destroyed by competition that they will not even see coming. My favorite example here is Kodak, because there used to be this advertising campaign in the 1980s and 1990s. It was about the Kodak moment, okay? So the Kodak moment was, you take a picture with your friends and family, and that was the moment. It was absolutely wonderful and fantastic. Now, the expression Kodak moment means you absolutely missed the biggest, photographic industrial opportunity in history. And you went from the 500-pound gorilla to be somebody who's just white labeling other people's products with tiny margin. We should be crying when we read about this. And then if we think about, Borders, losing massive market share to Amazon, who would have known? EMI and the rest of the music industry losing to Apple, and Spotify and stuff. It's just impossible to imagine. But, it gets back to the reason why we should do these things, that these assets which can influence design influence business, is going to materially affect the performance of a company. Yeah, in the form of cash. And in some cases, not just cash, but survival. So, I've spoken a bit about, the past and the present state, but let's think a bit about the future. Yeah? Talking about the future is wildly dangerous, but I'll give it a shot. For me, I think the future in this context, in data-driven design, links to my contention earlier about there being no difference between the online and the offline world, okay? I think that there is going to be a really solid merger here, and this merger is going to come really close to us. So wearables, smart fabrics, smart clothes, these things are going to be, let's say, making our daily life experience more pleasurable and enjoyable. So as opposed to the very, let's say, domain domain-specific improvements you get. So, for example, a better elevator, or a better trip to the grocery store, or a better phone call to your mom. What will happen is that these kind of, let's say, rapid and agile, customized improvements to the services that we're even wearing will be happening constantly and seamlessly to us. And I think that this is only a good thing. But the important thing to remember is that, think about the services and devices that we take for granted now, okay? And let's say the availability of those services and devices, even the price point. Could we have predicted it 10 years ago or 15 years ago? I don't think so. So what we're going to see is massive quantities of innovation as more and more data sources become available to be fed into the design process. Okay? Now, I want to make one last point about using data, using information. If data and information is available to designers and to companies, okay, I think that not using it is a little bit like this. Okay? So, can you tell me who would be a passenger in the plane if this was the view that the pilot had? Well?
It depends on if the black area is a screen or not.
Sorry?
It depends on whether that black area is a screen or not.
That black area is just, it's a void.
If it's a screen, it's
No.
a void.
No, it's no information. So what I've done is I've removed information. It could be fun, But would anybody really, would you pay for a ticket? What if there was a really good discount? Or unlimited free drinks? Yeah? You know what I mean? Yeah, you see what I mean, right? Yeah? So the incentive, the power of incentives kind of starts to trail off when you start to weigh the risks, okay? So the information that's available here is fundamentally critical for the successful running of this service. Agreed? Yes, Cormac. Come on, please. A little bit of participation, okay? And this is just a non-runner. Yeah, totally unacceptable. And I think the same thing goes for design. We don't have any excuse nowadays to not incorporate these data sources into everything that we do. So, 15, 20?
Years or minutes?
No? I mean, 15, 20. How many times did I say big data? Maybe 20. I stop now. Okay? Is that the end of it? Okay, I'd like to say thank you for your attention. And I'm glad that I didn't put anybody to sleep. And thanks, Lassie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Cormac, for the great opening talk. Do we have any questions? Yeah, please, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura, also presenting here from Diagonal. I would like to ask, what is your perception that do companies in Finland really understand this, or are they still missing the opportunity to actually use this data and discover new things?
It's changing at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
It's in the positive, it is. So, we're seeing an acceptance of the importance of using information, which is not only within a company, but which is available to a company from external sources. And I'm never an advocate of absolutely massive projects, okay, with big goals at the end. And what's making me happy is that I'm seeing, projects which are having realistic goals and testing how these data and how these services can improve design and service delivery in a measurable and rapid way. So it is happening. It's not a giant leap. It's a small step, but it's happening.
I could ask one question before we conclude. Do you think data will help companies to prevent or get out of the way of the codec moments?
I think there's only two ways to avoid it if it's coming towards you, and one is blind luck, and the other is to actually measure and act based on measurements. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of blind luck. Hands up anybody who is. Yeah. Okay, when it happens in the positive, then it's great, but
Thank you. I think we're going to be hearing a little bit more about leading and lagging indicators later on today, which might have something to do with this. But please give a big hand to Cormac and thank you for coming.
thank you.